How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Welcome to the couch
Thank you.
of our backyard.
We should spend more time out
I
here.
was
It's
just thinking that.
very calm.
It's really nice. We spent so long like trying to make the space nice, but then I was thinking, how often do we actually sit down?
Yes. Not often.
Thanks for taking the time to come and have a chat.
It's all right. I created the time.
Cool.
Scheduled it in.
Yeah, you did. Thank you. Cheers.
Cheers.
So I guess something that I've been looking at a few forums and stuff about business lives and work-life balance and all those sorts of things. And there were just a lot of common themes about like relationships and how to run a business and all the work that involves, especially coming from, I guess, the partner's perspective. So I guess in our case, you did your apprenticeship and we met in your final year of doing your apprenticeship, electrical apprenticeship. And I was doing the last year of nursing at uni. And then you decided to open your own business and start your own trade company. And I guess I just wanted to talk about our journey of, like it's been together 15 years. So our journey as a couple through that, but also the big things of, so many themes come up in that sort of aspect. Communication, which I think is so key, because something that we were talking about just last night was around, like finally we're in this like space of business where the business is cruising. Our kids are, in primary school, so there gives me a little bit more time to sort of put my focus on other things, and just how good it is that, thank God, we are still good and we made it through such difficult times. So we're able to enjoy the time that we're at because we're still together.
Yeah.
So what comes up for you when I talk about, or when we talk about some of the hard times in our relationships, or, going and maybe start back at the beginning. So in the first couple of years of starting the business, and maybe I was doing my thing and you were doing your thing, and maybe when it really started to get hard.
Yeah, so I think firstly, I always wanted to create financial freedom because I thought that would give me the time freedom to spend time with my kids and my partner and to live a nice life. And that sort of was created through the books I was reading through my apprenticeship, which was like Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and a lot of property investing books.
Yeah.
And they would always start out why you should even get into investing in property, and that was the main thing.
Your why.
Yeah, the why. And they would always talk around when you have financial freedom, you have more flexibility, you got more time. And so that was always interesting to me. And I remember I bought my first property when I was 20, when I was an apprentice in Gold Coast, right before the financial crisis. Yeah. And that just didn't go well. But they said, even if you buy at the wrong time, just wait 10 years and it should double. And so I thought I was set because I was just waiting for it to grow by 10% so I could then refinance, get another property and grow super quick.
So like straight off the mark, you were pretty like entrepreneurial.
Yeah, but that was developed by reading and learning from people who had got financial freedom.
Yeah. Okay.
So
who were these people and how were you meeting them?
Through books.
Okay. So just stuff you'd picked up.
Yeah, I got recommended by my swimming coach to read Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
So like age 17?
Yeah, probably 17 or 18.
Yeah.
And then from there, those other books is what I started reading. And yeah, so I had this whole thing of like, no, I'm set. And so I thought it was all sweet. And that's when I started partying real hard. And that's sort of when we met.
So you've been given these books of like this entrepreneurial idea to sort of give you this time freedom where you can have this super cool life where you're just doing what you want when you want and hanging out with your kids. And then what you were reading was saying buy property and
wait until it grows by enough to get a refinance, use the equity as a deposit and buy another property and keep doing that over and over and over. Seems super simple.
Yeah, right.
Didn't work out for me.
Yeah, okay.
So, and I remember you were like, don't you want to do something with your life? I was like, no, I've already got it set. Like, I know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
But the market had control. Like, I had no control over what the market did. So this is something I talk to our members about all the time is your business is an asset that you control.
Yeah,
it's a completely different thing to property, shares, Bitcoin, or anything else.
Yeah.
And so it's really important that people understand that owning a business is an asset that you can control.
Yeah.
Buying your own home, don't control if that goes up and down.
Yeah.
You know, you can control how much you repay, but it doesn't create wealth like a business does that you
So
own.
it's like in your business, you can ramp it up or turn it down.
Based on like knowing how to scale it and how to leverage it and how to create time within that as well.
Yeah.
The only problem is people get stuck, and I did. I got pretty lucky in that when we started Response, and now coming over to when I started Response, we're pretty lucky that they had the RCD and smoke alarm regulation as a compulsory thing for real estates. And that came out, and it was pretty good timing, and it got me in the door with some real estates. And we sort of rode that wave off of one real estate for like a year. And then after that year, I sort of picked up one or two just organically, just by word of mouth. But there was no real driving the business at the front end, which we talk about in the academy a lot. And after that year, I thought I had it sweet because the average job was like $700 a job because it was 2 RCDs, 2 smoke alarms, and it was really easy. And so I had this false economy where I thought this was going to be really easy, but then all of the houses got done and all of a sudden all that work went away.
You saturated.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
we're left with no more of that type of work. And then our average job went to like $150 for the real estates. And I was just like, damn it, like what's going on? Don't understand it. So there's a lot of confusion in that you think you've got it sweet, but then it's actually just the market like providing you with an opportunity. Okay.
So going back to you had those books and then you bought your property and then you like sort of took your foot off the pedal and you're like, okay, now I'm set for life. And then that's when like we met. And you just said that I was asking you what you were going to do with your life. Is that, and then that's when you decided to do business or?
Yeah, because that was another part of the plan was to start a business once I'd finished my apprenticeship.
Yeah, right.
So that just motivated me to prove to you that I was doing something.
Yeah.
And hence another reason why you have to have like a good woman in my life. Like that's
prove to me you can
challenge me.
Yeah.
So that like I started it to show you that this is what I wanted to create.
Yeah, cool.
But
it also kept you busy as well.
Oh, it kept me really busy.
Yeah, maybe too busy. So you're saying I dug that hole for us.
Yes, but a lot of the business comes from not having an awareness of how to create the time either.
Yeah. So, sorry, carry on.
Yeah, and throughout, and I talk to the academy members about this all the time, but throughout my journey, I wasn't aware. Like I had no awareness. I didn't do any self-reflection. I did no introspection. I wasn't aware of the cycles I was on.
Right.
And I wasn't aware of when to hire. And I wasn't aware of when to get work. And I had these fears and reservations about hiring, so I wasn't sure if I was going to have enough work. And I didn't see that every time I hired, it created more space for me to go and get the work. And that resulted to growth.
Super important stuff, but you're going super businessy and I want to pull you right back and get back relationshipy.
Yeah.
When did you start feeling like, could I say it was the birth of our first child when the pressures of running a business, like you really felt that for us as a family? Was it before that?
Yeah.
Was it when did you feel, so like sort of put your head in the family setting here and sort of like out of the office and in the home.
Yeah.
When did you feel the pressures of running a business and what that meant to our family? Like from your perspective.
From my perspective, it was definitely in the first couple of years before we had kids, we were two independent people driven by what we were trying to achieve, and
which are different things.
Yeah, and we definitely supported each other in each of those things, and we had endless time.
Yeah.
There was no responsibility of another person.
Yeah, and we didn't have to work together as a team at that stage.
No.
It was sort of like, you do you, I do me, and then...
And when we've got spare time, we'll catch up and we'll hang out.
We'll hang, but it wasn't just when we've got spare time. It was like at the end of the day, we'd Netflix like every other couple, or cook tea together and do those, you know, really nice things where we weren't really relying on one another to actually get anything done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We didn't need babysitters
or school pickup or someone to make lunches or anything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Even to be home to go to the gym, or all the stuff that as independent people we just totally took for granted. And then you have like become parents. Yeah.
Yeah.
So go back to...
So for me, I think the pressure sort of kicked in when you got pregnant with Grace.
Yeah.
And that was the first time you felt you had responsibility because you were intrinsically connected to the baby. Whereas I didn't have that awareness, but you were trying to get me to understand what you were going through. So you were struggling energetically. You didn't feel yourself anymore.
Couldn't keep
up. And I just did not understand that.
Yeah. I remember being like 35 weeks pregnant in my like last week of working and being like, oh, look at my belly. And you're like, whoa, you're like actually pregnant. And it was like, I've been actually pregnant for the past 8 months.
Yeah.
And like, I guess because I'm carrying baby, like I know it all the time because baby's always with me. But for you, it's sort of like, oh yeah, that's like, it's only when you see me that you know, remember.
But at the time, even with you being pregnant, I didn't understand what it meant to be a good partner. I didn't know what it meant to be a good husband. And I certainly didn't understand what it meant to be a good dad.
Right.
And I had an idea, but I thought that came later.
Okay.
And I didn't realize it started as soon as you got pregnant.
Yeah, right.
So,
because what did a good dad look like to you then, and what do you know a good dad and partner to look like now?
Then I think most of what a good dad looks like didn't involve any pregnancy or baby.
So just having fun.
It's
just like in the pool all the time, 24/7.
Yeah.
Maybe sometimes having a barbecue.
It was having experiences with the kids, and so therefore I didn't really think through what that meant.
So like the ads on TV.
Yeah. But also like now I think a good partner is creating a space to have good conversation. It's about understanding what the other person's going through, and people are going to have bad days, and being in a place where you can catch those feelings and support and not blame yourself. Like I was definitely I would always think that it was my fault. Everything was like,
so if
everything
I was in
was
a
a
bad
problem.
mood,
Yeah, and one of the biggest things that I learnt doing a lot of personal growth work was I needed you to be happy, and when you weren't, I was bad. So I put that as like, because I wanted you to be happy, and therefore my being required you to be happy, and when you weren't happy, I was doing a bad job. And so then I would feel pain because I was being bad even though I was trying.
And interesting, because then when I'm having a hard time, like I want you to come closer to me and support me, but because you're feeling like bad, you need support because you're feeling bad.
Yeah.
And so then when I noticed that cycle, it was as though I couldn't ever show you I was unhappy. And then it becomes like, how do you get close to someone when you're not showing each other that vulnerability? Because it's in that vulnerability is where that connection happens.
Yeah.
And I think we were able to, like get there. But how do you for yourself, so you're saying being a good partner is making sure that you've created time to be there for someone and make that space. What other things? This isn't a test, by the way.
Yeah, no, it's all good. I think it's like understanding myself and understanding that I can only control the way I react to a situation. And so if you are upset, for example, I could internalize that and say that I've been bad, I haven't been supportive, and therefore I'm angry, and I get angry at the work, and I get angry at I'm too busy, and I get angry at everything else to try and protect myself, which I used to do. Or I can go and journal, which I've learnt to do when I'm feeling like that, and I can start to see that it's not you, it's not me, it's the situation. So what is the situation? And that's probably one of the most powerful things I've ever learnt, because it taught me to disconnect you from the problem and disconnect myself from the problem. And therefore, I am now analysing and trying to fix the situation rather than try and fix you, which I have no control over, and trying to fix me, which makes me feel bad.
Control of the situation. Like, I mean, for example, like the situation I know many a times was no one slept the night before because we have a sick baby. One of us needs to be somewhere. Often you'd be going away for whatever event, like networking, board meetings, whatever. I was staying at home feeling pretty tired, often upset, sometimes resentful, let's be honest, often resentful of you going to do these big things on your, career, while I felt unsupported and stuck at home with baby and, doing all these things. Adore my children, but every mother knows when it's just those times where you're just pushed under, you just get to the point like, oh my God, I just need a break because I don't want to lose it, and I need to be the best version of myself, not just for my kids and my husband and my family, but for me. Of course, everybody wants to be the best versions of themselves.
Yeah.
So what about journaling for you? What does journaling bring up for you? And first of all, did you feel like, because I felt like I was like to you all the time, journal, and you didn't. And then one day you were like, I'm going to journal. And then you came back and you're like, oh my God, I felt all these amazing things. So did you feel like journaling was kind of girly? And like feelings and reflection, and did you feel like that was going backwards, or how do you feel about journaling?
Oh, I just had no idea about it. Definitely thought it was a girly thing because that's all you ever see.
Dear Diary.
Yeah, Dear Diary, for sure. But I think, I can't even remember when it started.
You did it on the plane on the way home from a board meeting. One of the board meetings, you did it on the way home. We were having massive arguments.
Yeah. And
I just sort of like wanted you to reflect on the situation. So you would have done it on the plane on the way home.
Okay.
Can't remember that one?
No. I can't remember when it started, but all I do know now is since learning to do that. And I think what really got me into it was the book Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. So he wrote...
I love that.
Yeah, and I still listen to it often. And I'll just randomly pick. And I'm listening to podcasts that deconstruct it.
Yeah, cool. Because we did that a couple of times, right? Like listen
to a chapter bit, and then we'll
discuss
talk about
it. Yeah.
And I think those meditations, the way he wrote was in third person. And I was like, oh, that's how you write as a man.
Yeah.
So I was like, I started writing in third person. You are doing it again. This, you can control this situation by da-da-da-da-da. It is not you, it's the situation. So what is the situation, ?
Sure.
And I was able to write in third person, and later realizing that I'm effectively coaching myself when I write like that.
I was just about to say, you're like your own mentor.
But also I'm detaching myself from admitting it's me, and I'm writing, as if I'm my best self talking to myself.
Amazing.
And so when I write in that third person, that makes me feel comfortable enough to be completely honest with myself and answer the question to myself effectively.
Yeah.
And so, so the power of journaling has been amazing. And I think also learning some form of philosophy like that, I think Ego is the Enemy was a really good book that really made me realize that ego isn't just egotism. It's just the way, it's your inner voice. It's the way that you talk to yourself and receive things. And so to be able to journal and listen to things like that and then be able to journal off the back of that helps me, realign and realize what's important right now and also what I need to work on. Because often you get stuck in work mode.
Yeah.
And all you're focusing on is what is in front of you, not taking looking at the big picture and realizing that a simple move could completely change the way you show up.
So are you talking about then in business, or are you talking them, and I know you can apply this to everything, but can you use an example in how that might work, how you might be using journaling in a family situation? Or with in association with work.
Oh yeah. So it might be I get upset. I've had a busy day at work, and a stressful day at work, and some things have gone wrong, and I come home and I bring that home with me. And then the kids say something or do something, I get angry with them. And if I was to go and journal at that point, I would be able to detach the situation that I was angry at the kids, and see that it's not the kid's fault, and it's not necessarily my fault either.
Yeah.
And it's not even when I look at that, I say, what is the situation that caused that event to happen? And I would write about that, and I would actually see, well, these things happened today.
Yeah.
And it wasn't fair that I reacted the way I did to the kid, and therefore I'm able to remove my anger towards them, which it would have felt like genuine anger that they'd done the wrong thing, or they were, throwing the pie at the wall was the wrong thing to do. But it's actually their call for attention because I've been so busy and I've been ignoring them for a week.
Yeah, because you've been caught up in whatever's happening.
And as soon as I realize that, I go, that shit that happened at work's not that important. And if I'm at a point where I'm at I'd call that breaking point, where I'm reacting without knowing I'm reacting, then I'd go into a daily journal practice until I've resolved my thirst for work, my desperation. And that's when I'm like, this isn't that important. I'm going to delegate this to someone else. I'm going to stop doing that. I'm going to delete that client. I'm going to take action to fix the situation so that I'm not coming home and being upset with my family, which matters the most to me.
Yeah. It's kind of like when you're hyper-focused and you get a microscope and you dial in, you're hyper-focused on this one pain in the ass client or customer or something, and you're taking that around with you all week and pissing off other relationships and getting annoyed at your kids and getting annoyed at your partner or whatever. Whereas if you turn the microscope the other way and got to the big picture, that client is actually defeating the purpose, because you're trying to have a better relationship with your partner. You're trying to have a better relationship with your children. You're trying to have a better life. But because you've just got so hyper-focused on this one point, you're actually doing the opposite. So by, like you said, letting it go, you're able to sort of come back and live in the bigger picture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do a lot of negative visualization as well. Especially if I'm in a bad place, if I feel like I really don't like you at the moment.
Yeah. As in me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If that's how I'm feeling.
Yeah.
I'll do negative visualization.
What if she died?
That's what I'll write about.
Yeah.
I'll write that I'm so angry with you today, and then I'll envision you passing away tomorrow.
Fuck, babe.
And then all of a sudden, it is hectic, but get this, right? So I do this and instantly
Yeah.
I go, this isn't fucking worth it.
Yeah.
Like what I'm bitching about right now in myself is so stupid.
Yeah.
In the scheme of things,
yeah.
is this how I want to live my last day with you if that does happen?
Yeah, sure.
Because our future is not certain.
Absolutely.
We don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And just a simple activity like that, as crazy as it sounds, slaps me right in the face.
Yeah.
And it just goes, stop focusing on this. It's not important. And that's how I can go off now and get so angry at you and then come back 30 minutes later and be like, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
This isn't important. I realize it's a situation.
Yeah.
We can focus on this and then sometimes I think you also realize, oh shit, yeah, it is the situation.
Yeah.
In those moments as well.
And it's really interesting, like in those, like when you're having an argument with your partner, and like it's so hectic when it's in the chaos of like kids.
Yeah,
and
that's
like,
where you don't have any control over.
No, and you just want to finish your sentence and it's sort of like, we just need to work this out. And, once they're old enough, you can just say, we need some time.
Yeah.
But when they're young, they just don't get it.
Hanging on your leg.
Yeah, exactly. Your boob.
Yeah.
But they're just like, you're in it with your partner and you guys are so heated, and there's just the stuff in relationship counselling, the Gottman and Gottman. These two psychologists, pretty sure they're married, being Gottman and Gottman, and they talk about like when your heart rate is above 100, you can't feel calm and you can't process something. Is that
60? I'm at 60 right now.
60, are you calm?
I'm calm.
So if you got above 100, you couldn't process, I guess everyone's different because you're fairly fit, but you couldn't process what we're trying to talk about to sort it out. So if your heart rate gets above 100 and when like things get heated, like
probably switching to a different part of
your brain. And everything's like,
survival mode.
Like fight, flight, or just not, let's try and work this out. So if you can feel yourself getting heated, it's really important to step away. And I can put my hand up and say that I have had to learn that, and I am trying to practice that so much, because there is nothing more than following you around the house and trying to get a reaction. And I know you hate it.
Well, mine's
so
flight.
Unhelpful.
Flight. Mine is, when we get in those situations, is to walk away from the situation, process it, come back and talk about it. But you don't let me.
You're such a Buddha.
You don't let me walk away. It's like, talk about it now. I'm like, I don't know. I can't think. Yeah.
That's definitely, and it's hard to, because when you're, and sometimes anger can really build up and it can feel really good and like, I'm right.
I don't feel good with anger.
But at times you do escalate and it comes about because it's hard to, my point is, it's hard to catch yourself to then calm down.
Yeah.
You're like, oh my God, I'm getting really frustrated. And like, again, we have to leave by 10 to 4. And if we don't leave by 10 to 4, we're going to be super late. And then you start pissing each other off at like, 3:46, and you can start to get into something. You're like, I just want a quick answer. But it's like, no, I have to stop. I have to calm down. We have to let it settle, probably be late, and then we can go. But at least you're going without everything building up all the time.
Mm.
It's like super interesting. I've been doing this, I'm studying counselling at the moment, and just finding the couple counselling stuff so interesting because there are such little hacks that you can do to make things work. And like everything, like when you have some education around stuff, you can break it down to make it work. But it's really interesting in that relationship stuff because it actually works.
Yeah.
And it's hectic.
What's some of the things that you've really resonated with in the relationship space?
Oh, like so much. And I can't wait to learn more about it. But there's this thing called family systems therapy. And it talks about I feel like you've just asked me that and my mind's gone like of all the things and like the different tangents I could go down.
Yeah.
But it talks about like your family is a system. And I definitely, you know, like working in a business, once you get those systems down packed, then you can, you know, like you can delegate and people know their role. And that's really, you know, like easy for people to understand. One person does this, the other person does that, like, and then you come to end result or a conclusion or whatever. And it's pretty much the same theory in a family. So you have like a mum role and whatever that mum role looks like. Like it doesn't have to be the typical, you know, mum role. A dad role, whatever that dad role looks like. The role, like the kids have a role, the pets have a role, aunties have a role, friends have a role. And when everyone can like assess that role and define the boundaries of that role is really important. And then you can talk about like how firm or loose your boundaries are. So like, for example, I have a role of usually when we go away, I pack you pack for you, but I'll pack for me and I'll pack for the kids and I'll organize the house stuff and the pet stuff and all that sort of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that is my role. And you don't ask, you know, like what's happening with the dog or the cat because
it's your responsibility.
Because you know, and not that we've ever spoken about it, but I always do it. Therefore, I'll always do it.
Yeah.
And that is my role. And you know that not to like, if you went off and did it, it would like put me out of it'd be like, oh, great.
Yeah, have you packed the right things? I've got to unpack to realize.
Exactly. Like, did you remember this? Did you remember? And not only that, but I have experience packing. So I can go on that experience of like, now I know how to do it. And then, I don't know, maybe deep down inside me somewhere, there's some pride in knowing, you know, like packing really well for the kids, something very small. Yeah. But there's some, you know, something in that. Whereas if you went and did it and say you did it really well, I'd be like, that's my job. You know, like I usually get I don't know, no one ever mentions it, but self-satisfaction of like, that is my job that I do.
Yeah.
And so if you cross that boundaries, then that would make me kind of like feel off. And the same in your boundaries. You know, like if, I don't know, if you, something that you did, and if I crossed the boundary and was like, no, do it like this, you'd be like, hang on a minute, that's my thing. But it's just really important to everyone to have their roles and for those roles to be really, really clear.
Yeah.
And I think that's when it comes down to the communication part it's so busy, like family life is so busy. Running a business is so busy. Put those things together, take all the emotions out of it. If you've got no time to reflect, if you've got no time to journal, if you've got no time to feel yourself escalating, you are constantly going to be in this loop. No one's ever going to communicate. You're constantly going to be pissing each other off because you're stepping on each other's toes.
Yeah, you should have done that, or you shouldn't have done that.
Yeah, exactly. And it was like for me, I know when I get cranky at you, it's he should have done that and he doesn't, and he didn't do it because he's too busy doing whatever he's doing. And he doesn't, it's sort of like a disrespect thing. It's sort of like, you know you should do it, but you don't, and that's because he doesn't respect me. But if I thought about it, you know you should do it, but maybe you don't know you should do it.
Maybe I don't.
And maybe lots of things are going on in your day that you knew you should have done it, but you also, everything else is blowing out and you just didn't have time.
I think as long as, like you said, those family systems have to be clear. And, when I think back, the first time we actually put family systems in place, and this can happen before babies and couples that are never going to have babies, this can still work.
Partnerships. It works in anything. Yeah.
So I think, but the first time we actually started doing this is when we created a schedule of like on a very high level, this is when I work, this is when I don't.
Yeah.
And that created a high level structure for our family to operate within.
Yeah.
And that was excellent. And we can go one step further of, I do the dishes after thing. So that's a responsibility that I do.
Mm-hmm.
Therefore, you don't have to think about it. You don't waste energy on it. You know it's going to get done. It gets
efficient.
done. It's efficient.
Yeah.
And that was one of the biggest lessons I learned over the last year, was the importance of this. And this is why we teach it, and we provide templates for position descriptions at work.
Yeah.
Because the amount of people that don't have position descriptions, they expect staff to just know what to do.
Absolutely.
It's like they don't. They're just going to be going off what they previously experienced at different relationships,
Yeah.
or different employers. So same goes in the family system, where the clearer you can get about who's responsible for what, the more harmonious the relationship will be, because you can actually see and who's doing what.
And the division of labor can be even as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's sort of like, not things need to be done, and it might not be who likes doing it the most, but who hates it the least. Who's cooking dinner or doing the dishes. Like that works well in our family, because like dinner starts a bit before you get home. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then I feel like it's equal, because then you can start on the dishes. So it's really, and I can remember that when we first started doing it, and it's like I didn't even know that we were doing it. But when we first became parents, and it was like we had like a hierarchy of responsibility sort of thing. And it's like the most important person for you to look after is you, and the most important person for me to look after is me.
Yeah.
And of course our daughter, but then like it's sort of like,
for us to be best parents, we have to be in a good place.
And like for you and for me, that meant exercise, eating well, journaling, and so the energy that you're creating in yourself is making sure that you turn up to family life as your best self and not being a dick. Like, oh, I haven't got enough time to exercise. Well, why didn't you make time to exercise? Wake up earlier, like prioritize that. Because if you're going to be rocking up to your relationship as a dickhead, like nobody's going to have a good time. And especially, and like, it's just interesting that, I mean, before we even knew anything about systems, we're already realizing that it's really important for you to look after you.
Yeah.
And then when one of us gets in a shit spot or a spiral or like comes out of routine, the other one can be like, hey, have you, when's the last time you exercised? Have you been for a run lately?
Yeah.
Like, do you maybe want some time for journaling? I can, help make that happen for you. But it's important for you to look after yourself and take responsibility for yourself as an adult as much as you possibly can. But then when you're coming into a relationship, like it's really nice to have the other person support you. So like I often say to you, don't catch my crazy ball. Like I am just letting everyone know I'm in a shit mood. Might be that time of the month. Lots of things are pissing me off. I'm just letting everybody know mum needs some space. And I get like the eye roll, which is so fine. I just need some space. But I'll say, I know it in myself. Like people are like, why did you put those shoes there? And it'll come out and you'll be like, why are you such a psycho? Yeah. But it's sort of like, okay, don't catch my crazy ball. And like you could react there like, like, oh my God, why are you such a knob? But instead, it's sort of like, okay.
I look to the situation.
Yeah.
What's the situation?
I'll just put them away then. Like,
yeah, but what is the situation that's making you act like that?
Yeah, often PMS.
I know. But that's where I can quickly go, now, something else is going on.
Yeah.
Because you're only acting that way because of something that's going on.
Yeah.
So you might not have might not have been exercising, you might not be sleeping properly. You might not have been eating well.
Something might have gone on at work.
Something might have happened at work. So then, without me taking offense to that, I can come to you in a calm place.
Yeah.
Say, hey, what's going on? Is there something? Like, and you usually would just say, like, I just need time. I was like, sweet. And then give you time.
And that's not catching my crazy ball.
Yeah. But if I caught you crazy ball, I'd get angry at you and say, you're a dickhead.
Yeah.
And then I'd be angry, so even by the time you've calmed down, I'd still be angry.
Yeah.
That you acted that way, and you are the problem.
Yeah.
Which isn't the case.
And that's what you're saying. Like, this person is not just being a dickhead. This situation is there's an external factor that's pissing them off.
Yeah.
And take that external factor away, and they would just be a nice person that I love.
Yep.
Yeah. Not having crazy balls.
Yeah. No crazy balls.
Yeah. Good.
Cool.
Yeah. So I mean, like we said at the beginning about finally getting to the space where business is running smoothly, kids are at primary school age, such an awesome time in life. Like the kids just this age is so good, so fun. Is this now when you imagine being a dad? Is this the time that you had imagined?
Yep.
Like the fun stuff.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, you know, I'm glad that we learnt how to communicate and pass the blame into the situation rather than each other, because that helps us get through tough times.
Yeah.
No matter what now, I feel like we're able to work as a team.
Or at least we'll try.
We know how to work.
We've got
as
the
a team.
skills.
And it doesn't mean we're not going to get angry at each other, which we still do. It just means that when we do, we can start to process it and figure out what's going to help moving forward. And
continue learning skills and testing and trial and error of what works to try and keep us connected throughout the craziness of life.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thanks for being awesome.
Thanks for being wicked.
Wicked.